All right, as you can see, I've got the advanced takeoff on my screen already up here. I've loaded into, and I have this, of course, on one screen because of our situation here with the webinar, but obviously two screens is a much better layout for this. When you are laying out your screen, so that's kind of the first thing we'll cover here is, when we get into the advanced takeoff, when you first get in, up at the top here, you've got the view button. When you go to view, you can come over here and you can hit load. And load will give you some default options that we've created. One's called full workspace, and that's what you see in the background right now that I've got loaded. There's a maximized plan view. There's a quantity takeoff. Remember that the advanced takeoff is not only for on-screen, but it also is able to be used if you're entering bills of material. So instead of having the mouse takeoff and the advanced takeoff, we just, the mouse takeoff and the on-screen takeoff like we had in the classic, it's all one now. So there is a setup. If you were not using drawing, you could just pick that. And then the one for if you're setting up dual screens, use this dual 24-inch to get started. You click on that guy, and it's going to put the drawing on the left-hand side and a lot of the palettes on the right, and then you can stretch that across both of your monitors there. So remember that we do have those preset up. So when you come in, pick the one that you want to get started with. And then as you'll see in this session, there is a lot of customization you can do to the advanced takeoff window. And we're going to go through that, how to move palettes around, how to make them bigger, smaller, turn them off if I don't want them, turn them back on, all that kind of good stuff. So we'll talk more about that. But remember in the beginning when you get in, view at the top, load, pick which one you like from the list, and that'll come up for you. Okay. So with the advanced takeoff here, I've got my screen set. And just as a quick review, the stuff that you were used to in Classic still exists here. We have our pipe. I'll click a size here, pipe, fittings, valves, all that good stuff. One of the biggest benefits, of course, of advanced takeoff is this nice little window up at the top right, your zone list. This is where you'll be able to go and toggle between the zones that you have created. So if I want to switch over to my other zone here, I can just toggle that guy on, and I'm now active in that zone. If I need to add something back on the chilled water zone here that I've got, I simply click. So this is the key to toggling between our zones. Okay, as I zoom in here and move around, of course, I've taken off a bunch of stuff already, just thrown some things in here, just playing around. And if you look at this, another nice advantage of the advanced takeoff is I can identify which fittings or valves are in each system because they're color coded to match. This occurs because I have my spec set for that particular color. So in my specifications, when I created them, I assigned the blue color or the red color for heating, and now it outlines my fittings with that same color. So I can quickly look at my screen and identify which fittings belong to which system. So again, if I'm doing my takeoff, pick my size, pick my fittings, and of course I am selected on the chilled water, so when I place my items here, I'm going to be placing some items in blue. When you're looking down at your audit trail, and remember, because I've got both of my zones turned on, okay, and turned on, I mean I have a check mark in front of it, okay? If the zone has a check mark in front of it, it will be displayed both on the screen and also in my audit trail. So the way I have it laid out right now here, you can see that I've got both zones turned on. So the audit trail is displaying both sets of material in one big list. And this is kind of how it comes canned out of the box. Now, we're going to talk a lot about the audit trail because this is an important piece, right, to see what material you have to be making changes to that material, size changes, quantity changes, whatever you need to change. When I'm looking at this, for me, this becomes a little confusing if I don't know which system these items are in. Okay, I've got 2 zones, and I've got a chilled water system, I've got a heating water system with different specs. And looking down at my audit trail, in the beginning here, it's a little difficult to tell which item belongs to which. Okay, obviously, if you click on an item, it does highlight on your drawing to kind of show you where it is. Okay, but it'd be nice if I was able to see these guys split out. So you have a couple of options to do that. With the audit trail, there is up in the left corner here, this little thing, when I put my cursor over it, turns a little finger pointer, and I click on it, and I open up my field chooser. So these are all the different fields that you can pick from as you go through and you say, hey, I'd like to see this in the audit trail. Classic view, you couldn't do that, right? You were limited to the line number, the type, the quantity, size, description, the basics. Here you have more control. And one of the fields that I have is zone name or zone name, plan, and spec. So even though I might have the same zone name, if I have a different plan or a different spec assigned to it, it'll break that out separately. So I kind of like that guy to be my sort. So anything in this list that I want to use to sort my audit trail, all I have to do is click on this, drag it over top of my audit trail, and when I come up to the top, right below the blue audit trail word here, there's a little bar, and when I put this over top of it, it expands and it says group by. So I'm going to let this zone plan spec go right now. And so in my audit trail, instead of just having a random list of material, I now have my zone breakout here listed for my audit trail. So I can see the first floor chilled water piping up here and the first floor heating water piping down here. So that's one option for me to look at it that way, and then if I don't want that, I can take this zone plan spec box, drop it away, and some people might want to look at it by spec. So I could throw it in by spec. Here's all the chilled water stuff that I have taken off and the heating water items. Okay, so you can just use any of these sorts in order to set this up. Okay. Some people also will take that and do an even further, because you can say, okay, I would like to see it by zone name that I did. And then I also want to maybe sort it by the spec after that. And so what that'll do is give me a little divider underneath that. Here's my zone name, here's the spec. And so now I have it set up this way. So you can create a hierarchy here of how you want your audit trail sorted. Okay. Once you set that up, it will hold that and keep that for the next time. Okay, so you don't have to do this every time, but certainly you could change it if you wanted to at any point, as you can see. Okay, so just keep in mind that you can do those things. And like I said, I kind of prefer this zone, plan, and spec, but you can do whatever you like with that. Some other things in the audit trail, or in the field chooser here, that we want to put in the audit trail. Some people like to be able to see how many hangers are on their pipes. Okay, so if I turn on the hanger field, I can then see, okay, this pipe is getting 1 hanger, This guy here is getting 4 and down the road. Okay, so that's all I did was toggle it on, and it appears at the end of the list. I'll show you in a minute how you can move the columns around so you can put that somewhere else if you like. But a couple of other nice little boxes that are in the field chooser that I think, certainly you can take some time, look at those, play around with them, see what things you want to throw in there. The ones that I think are particularly handy are the hangers, maybe. The notes field, okay. This is going to allow me to put some notes on the items in my audit trail, and we'll talk about why that's handy in a minute. And here's a new one that I think a lot of people are going to like: exceptions. So we've done is, you guys know that on occasion you'll get some exceptions. Well, in the past, if you were using classic Takeoff, there was a way, if you went into your zone and you filtered your zone, you went into where it said filter selection, and it allowed you to show any item that was causing an exception. So that was one way to do it in classic Takeoff. Here in advanced, what we've done is put a column here that you can turn on, and if there's an exception in your list, there'll be the word yes in this column. So you'll be able to look down the list and see which items are causing the exception in your zone. Okay, so, and then from there, you'll be able to go ahead and make changes to it to get it so that it's not an exception anymore. Now, the nice part about this as well is, remember, we're not looking at one zone at a time like in Classic. Even though in Classic you had the sort to see the exceptions, you still had to go into one zone, then into another. Here you'd be actually able to look down your list if you've got your zones turned on. If you know what zones are causing it, just turn them all on and you can look down the list and of course see any exceptions. So like down here, I've had one that I caused an exception earlier so that we could display it. And you can see down here, this guy, this threaded ball valve is causing an exception. Okay. One of the things you'll notice too with the advanced Takeoff is we've also added some more features to help eliminate those exceptions. So it's going to be harder to get exceptions. I had to work at getting that one a little bit, do a couple of things to make it come up, because when I did switch out my spec, we always have the little box that comes up that asks you if you want to see if there's any exceptions, and you can map them and change them so they do not become exceptions. So for example, if I would have chose the option to review my exception list at the time I switched out my spec, I could have said, well, this threaded ball valve in the new spec is going to be a sweat ball valve. And I could have changed that over. But in this case, I chose not to do that just so I could have an example in here. So that is going to be a useful field for you guys to turn on. And of course, there's others in there that you can certainly look through, like I said. So we'll talk about the ones I've got on there. I've got exceptions, and we just said about that one. The hangers, we kind of know about that guy. The notes field. Let me give you a good example of where that might come in handy. As you're doing some takeoff here, and maybe you get an addendum in, this might be something that you want to kind of say, okay, here's all the stuff that I've taken off so far in my audit trail for that particular zone. Let's look at this guy up here. And I could, of course, go through and say, okay, they're taking out this elbow and this one, or this ball valve and that ball valve. But maybe I just want to have a little continuous list here. I like having the ability to have the original takeoff up at the top and then have my addendum, what things they added and what things they took out kind of at the bottom. So in this case, I say, okay, I'm going to start doing my addendum, and I know they're taking out some things. So I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to take out some valves here. So they're going to take out some threaded ball valves. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my notes field. Okay, and this is one of the fields that's available to you. And I'll show you how to split it out in a little bit here. But in this field, what I can do is say per addendum number 1. Okay, put a note in that. And then I'm going to say carry notes or carry forward notes. There's a little checkbox at the bottom of that window. Check that. Now, as I go and do my takeoff of those items, it's going to mark those for me. And I'm going to start out by saying, if I'm deleting, I'm going to switch the quantity entry over here to -1. Okay. And so now I can say, oh yeah, they're going to be taking out this valve and this valve. Okay. And I've got the little drum beat to tell me I've got the multiples turned on. But if you look over here in my audit trail, these 2 valves that I just put in there have a negative multiple. So essentially they're going to get subtracted out. Okay. And now it's keeping track here. It's saying this is per addendum 1. So now I have kind of a history, you know, and then if I'm saying, okay, now they're adding in some more things, so I can simply change my multiple back to a positive and say, yep, they're going to be adding some of these 90s here. They're going to put in one of those and one of these and something here and something there. And I have now, like I said, that history per addendum 1. So I like that notes field because then I can look through and I can have a note there that says that. And I can also save it as a preset note, so I wouldn't even have to type it every time. I could just select it from a list. So I like that notes field. We've always had this notes area. We just did not have the capability to see it in the audit trail. Now you do. Okay. Also with the audit trail, if you want to move things around, okay, so I want to move, maybe I don't want my size, or I want my size first. I'm going to drag the size column. I'm going to put it between the line number here and the quantity, and I let it go. And so now my size is first. And then I want quantity next, then I want description, or whatever order that you would like. You know, maybe I don't use the per item factor too often, so I want to pull that guy and put him in the back. Okay. Or I want the hangers right up here next to my description field. So you can certainly make this a custom audit trail to see whatever you want to see in whatever order you want to see it. Okay. There's another field, actually, color, that some people like. Okay. So I can turn on the color window here. And so in addition to seeing the items that I have, I also have colors showing at the back. So that's another option for you. When I want to do, if I need to make some changes, I may want to go in and do some filtering. Okay, the audit trail, the nice part is that I can have a bunch of these guys turned on, but I want to just see all of my 90s right now. So I'm going to go up to the description piece here. And at the top, excuse me, there's a little arrow, drop-down arrow. So if I click on that, I can then get a list of all of the different descriptions and just say, hey, I just want to see my 90s. So now I have just the 90-degree elbow showing. Or maybe I just want to, work with pipe. I can turn just the pipe on. And now the nice part about that is if I need to select them, I can use my shift key and select, all the pipe from the top all the way down and not have to worry about getting 90s or picking other things. Okay. I can grab those things, and now I can right click in global, and I could make a hanger change if I wanted to and switch those over to a different type of hanger, or do turn off the hangers, turn on the insulation, whatever I want to do with that pipe. And remember, now I'm across 2 zones. Okay. And it's only 2 zones because right now I've got both of those zones checked. If I only wanted to affect the change on one zone, I just simply turn off the second one and it won't affect that one. Okay. Or if I've got 16 zones, if I've only got 2 active, meaning that they're checked or displayed, then it's only going to affect those. If I want them all, I just turn them all on. Okay. And you can see the yellow highlight here tells me I have my audit trail filtered. So then I just hit the little button here that allows it to be unfiltered and everything comes back. And you can do that to any of the fields. So you just want to see all your 2-inch stuff or your 1-inch stuff, you can select that. You also can get into custom filters where you can add a condition and say, I just want to pick the 90s, and I can add another condition and change the, toggle that guy over and say, I only want to see the 90s and the pipe, and hit OK. Now my audit trail is filtered to just the 90s and the pipe. So there's a lot of power in that audit trail, especially a lot more than you had previously. Okay. All right, so that is my audit trail. Talk about some other things here with, let's see, make sure I got all those. Yep. Okay, let's open up a new zone here. And I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be my second floor. Didn't have to type that second time, but chilled water. I'm going to select a different drawing here. Okay, open that guy up. And if you missed the first one, the first advanced takeoff training or webinar, remember that, or you'll find out that you can switch between drawings. So now I've got this guy open. Okay, I'm going to just set the scale on this one to make sure that I've got the right scale. So I'll just pick a doorway and set that. Okay, and so now if I'm doing takeoff in this area, just throw some of those guys in there, do whatever I'm going to do here. Okay, and of course all 3 of my zones are now on and active. If I want to switch back to the other drawing, remember that we could come up to the zone list and do that. And that's the best method. You'll notice up at the top, I've got a tab that has the first drawing and the second drawing, the one I'm on right now. But the best way to switch is to go up here and pick which zone you want out of that drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and pick on the chilled water on there. And so now it opens up that drawing for me. Okay. If I go and I pick, let's just say I'm in this zone, and now I say, okay, now I'm going to go over to the other drawing. If I click on that other drawing, I get a red box. The reason I'm getting the red box, or the red X in the box here, is because my active zone is still on that other drawing. And so it doesn't know what zone I want to choose from when I come over here. Okay, it just knows it switched the drawing, because I could have 3 or 4 or 6 or 10 zones associated to this drawing. Now, if I click on it, it's going to bring up the box that says, okay, which zone do you want to pick from? And then I can say, let's make it that zone. Now it switched the zone. So the steps, if I click on the drawing, are I'm going to have to click the drawing, try to place an item. Then it's going to pop up the chooser and say, nope, you can't do that. Which zone do you want? Hit that, hit OK. Then I have to go back and pick my size and item again. So the easier process is just going to be click the zone, that becomes active. Now I'm ready to go. Okay. Like with the audit trail, I also have a field chooser in the zone list. So I can add things here. If you guys are using cost codes or labor codes, those can be turned on. If you use the floor box, if you've put that in, you could turn that view on. Mine says floor, yours might say division if you haven't customized that field. That's what that guy is. Okay, I have the blueprint number. So you've got options with that, just like you did down here with the zone. Sorting this guy, you can also do the same thing. You have that group by area. So if you would rather see it, some people like to say, okay, I want to see it sorted by plan rather than by zone. Okay, you can do that. Now it's sorted by which plan I have. Let me open this up a little more so we can see it. Okay, So now here's anything, any zones that I had on M2 would be under here. Any zones I have on my OST pipe 1 drawing are down here. So certainly whatever you're comfortable with as far as the look of that, you can do. One of the nice parts too about up here, let's say I've just got the 1 zone on. When I open up, for the first time, or I come back into a job, let's say, I open this guy up, I come over here, and I say, okay, well, I've only got this one selected, but I want to turn on all of the pipe that's on this drawing. Right-click on that zone, and then you'll see Display All with Same Plan File. Okay, and it'll go through your zone list and turn on all of the zones that are using that plan file. So you don't have to sit there and click each one if you don't want to. Okay. All right, so that is our zone list over there. Let's talk about the layout of this. So I'm going to go in and turn on my fittings here. You'll notice, of course, that my fittings down here, I have them in Word view, first of all, or text. Okay, you can right-click and show icons if you like the icons. This is how it comes up to start. But you can right-click and show text. Okay, but I still have a scroll bar. But you know what? I don't have any flanges right now. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this guy and grab the corner and stretch out the fittings. And then I'm going to stretch the valves over here into the flange area a little bit. So now I don't have to scroll for my fittings. Now I can just say, I don't need the flanges that big, or I don't need the valves that big. You have customization now of how this box looks. You can also put it somewhere else. If I pick from the top border here, I click on the blue fitting, I can drag this up right by my window if I want to. And I could even just be placing items here. Now, some people may choose to keep this in this position. The nice part with the program too is you have a lot of flexibility. Make it what you want it. And also, like if I did something like this where I just drug this up here and put it in this window, if I want it back in its position here, docked where it was, I'm just going to double click on the blue bar and it drops back into its position down here. Now, the first time I drug it up there and I stretched my box for fittings. And then I double click to put it back. Now that I've done that, if I double click down here on the blue bar again, it will come up into that stretched position that I had it in. So all I have to do to toggle between this position and back in the docking position is double click. Take off my fittings. I'm done with the fittings, dock that. Okay, so I can go back and forth like that. You can also, as you can see over here, maybe on the hangers. Okay, my hangers and my specialties are tabbed right now. I got a little tab down here. But if I don't like that, I say I want hangers right aside of specialties. So what I did was I grabbed the top of the box and I grabbed the tab, pulled it off, and now I've got this window that's floating above my stuff here. Okay. When I put it over any of the windows, like right now I have it over the drawing area here, you can see the box that comes up in the middle is kind of a directional arrow. Okay. And if I take my cursor while I'm holding this blue palette, put it over the right arrow, it says I'm going to split that drawing window. I'm going to put these hangers that I've got on my cursor right now, I'm going to put that to the right-hand side where the blue shadow is. and so I'll let it go. And so it just split the window and put it over there. I'm going to grab it and drag it back here. Maybe I want it split at the top or the bottom, so I want to put it at the top. I let it go, it's up here at the top. Okay, or I can split it on the left, or I can say I want it to go to the bottom there. Okay, if I would like it tabbed, okay, I can come down and grab this. In the middle creates a tab. So now I have a tab, hangers, and then my drawing. Doesn't make sense to kind of put it there, but I can. But that's how it got tabbed down here. You see, when I go over top of the specialty box where it came out of, I can put it back into a tabbed order here. So any of your items, if you say, well, I don't use it a whole lot, so instead of having it take up real estate, you could have it like the hangers. You know, maybe I don't use those a whole lot, so I'm going to put them tabbed. So if I need them, I can go back and click on it, pick a hanger and just place it. Maybe. Okay. Pick a size, pick my hanger. So I can place one on there and then go back to specialties, because maybe I don't do that a lot. Maybe I just use the hangers occasionally for a riser clamp. So you can do that with any of these guys. You can move these. Maybe I want to take the fittings and I'd like to do that with the fittings, put them to the side here. So I've got the fittings. Well, maybe I want to put pipe right above that or below that. Well, I'll take the pipe box, bring it over here, and now I'll say, let's put that at the bottom, and then I don't need that much room for it, so I'll bring it down into this position. Okay. So you can modify and move anything you want around. If there's certain things that you don't use, you can always turn them off. Okay, so if I said, you know what, I don't really use the hanger part of this, I can do an X and turn it off. Or if you've accidentally done that, okay, up here at the top under your view, you can see the select palettes option. Click on that, and then you can go back and turn that back on. It'll appear back where it was the last position. So if you happen to turn one off, you can turn it back on. Other things, if you notice here, I've got one off to the side here. I call this pinned, it's called auto hide. So if I said, I don't use the toolbar here too much, so I'm gonna push the pin, that auto hides it. Now it's off to the side. If I need it, just place my cursor over it, it'll come out. So you have that ability to do that. Get out of that for a minute. Okay, same thing with your bookmarks in your database right now are at the bottom here. They're, auto hid or pinned at the bottom. So I can open that up, still take off anything from my database and place it if I wanted to. All right, so we got all that. You can then, after you configure this the way that you like it, you say, yeah, this looks good for me. I want it this way. Just remember, if I close and I come back in, it'll stay this way. But I would always recommend coming up here to view and just save that view, put your name on it and save it. The other thing you can do is with view, if you create one and somebody else in the office likes it, you can export that view. They can import that. So you export it out. It's going to say, which one do you want? Where do you want to put it? On your computer, on your network, put it on a network drive that somebody else can get to, put it on a thumb drive and pass it over. And then they can go and grab that file and import it and have their items set up here. Okay. All right. And let's see what else. Oh, so the other things, don't forget, you can always print out your drawing or save it out as a JPEG. So to do that, up at the top here, and let me show you this other item too while I'm thinking about it. Well, let's do the save here first. Okay. So if you go to plan file up here, you have two options. Save full image, so that would be your whole drawing with all of your notes and annotations, any of your items that you've got placed on it. You can save it out as a full image. Oh, I had my notifications box open. Forgot to do that. Okay, crash and burn. Let me pop that open again. You can also save the partial image. And the full image, I'm not sure why I crashed there. I'll go and find out there. So, but the partial image would just allow me to send out a certain view. So if I was, zoomed into this area, maybe I need to send out a, request for information to the engineer, and I want to clarify what area I'm talking about. I could put a note on here, drag a note box. This is the area. And then, throw in here, cancel that, save this out under plan file, save current view, and this will be an area that I'll have taken. It won't be the whole drawing, just this area. Okay. All right. Conflict notes. If you guys ever use conflict notes in the classic system, it is here. It's on the zones here. Add a conflict note. And if you hadn't, you might want to try these guys out. This is an area that you can come in and create a note that says, maybe I have to get a clarification on something, or maybe I want to put down, a reason that I, took off something. Flow diagram shows 6-inch and plan shows 10. Used plan or something like that. Or I want to get that clarified. So I can create conflict notes, and as you go out, there's a box here that says I can see the conflict notes, and it gets tagged to the zone information. And then there's ability to print that list, or when you go to Excel, if you put it out into like our final estimate sheet, it will create a whole new tab with all the notes that you've taken off on the job. Okay. So that is a nice feature that's in the system. We did add it into the advanced takeoff, so I wanted to make sure I showed that to you guys there. All right, and I think that takes us through what I wanted to cover in our webinar here. I'm going to go ahead and look. We got a couple of questions here. Let me see if I can go through these here with you. Okay, so editing, where did I get the global from? So if I've got, I'll just turn my 3 zones on here. Making changes, in Classic, we had the button at the bottom that said global. Well, in this version of the program, what we did was just allowed it to be a right click. So you just hit a right click, and then you can go into global, and then you can make your changes to the size or any other thing that you want to change and go there. So that is where I do the global from. If you select multiple items, same thing, just select them, right click, and then global. Okay, let's see. All right, so if we have drawings that are not to scale, how do we proceed with the takeoff in QuoteSoft? You can do, a couple of things, obviously, depending upon, if they're not to scale and you still think, well, we can guesstimate it. Obviously you can set the customization scale and say this is roughly this, or you can just simply, take off some pipe and make changes to the quantities here with a global change. That's an option. Or remember, you also still have the ability to say, hey, I need some 3-inch pipe here. I'm going to put in about 25 feet of that. So I can just come up to my quantity entry box, say I need 25 feet and accept. And then that'll put it into my audit trail. It marks it with a little asterisk saying, hey, it's not on your on screen. And then I might come over and just put myself a little note saying that I took it off, you know, pipe added via quantity entry. Something like that, so I know that, you know, when I look at this, oh, okay, I just added the pipe based on what I think it should be. Okay. Can you add or hide fittings in the fittings box? No, not at this time. There is talk about a favorites type of box where you could drag these guys over maybe and say, hey, I always use 90s, 45s, and Ts. But right now, this still displays whatever is in your database for a type in that fitting group. Okay, that was another same question there, it looks like. Yeah, the only way to hide those guys is if you would, like I said, go to your database and remove that baseboard T or whatever item that you're not using, because that's where it's reading from. It's reading out of the database. Okay. Let's see, is there any way to designate color to a pipe size? Only if you did that manually. So if you, you know, said, okay, here's the 3-inch, and I wanted to change it to this color, or picked all the 3-inch. Now you should be able to, let me see, I haven't tried this yet, let's see. So if I sort by this, and let's say I want all of my 2-inch pipe, and that selected it, let's see if it will let me change it. I don't know if it will. Yes, it will. Okay. So it will let me color code by picking those items in my audit trail, and then go ahead and, you know, hit the color box there. So in the future, one of the options that was being looked at is that feature possibly. The other thing is that as you take off the pipe, it would put in a little size piece there that says this is 2-inch pipe. You know, it would have a 2-inch symbol. So that's something else we're looking at there. Okay. Can we show group totals? If you're talking about the smart groups feature, no, that is not currently in advanced takeoff yet, but that certainly has been a request. Okay. The sort order of the fittings, that is also done in the database. So like for the 90s, the 45s, the Ts, this is all pre-set up in the database. These each have a number. So you can go in and change that. If that's something you'd like to do, you can give us a shout and we'll walk you through that. Okay, so the tabbing feature, I wanted to go over that again. So if you do the, if I say, hey, I want to put flanges with the valves, I pull it off of here, go over to the valves box, and in the middle is how I tab. So I let it go while it's in the middle, and now it's tabbed. And if I want to change the order, I simply just slide them. So I can slide the valves back on, or the flanges to the front, or the valves to the front. Tab, if it matters or not. Okay, but again, that was just, all I would have to do is grab the box, put it over the middle, and then it'll be tabbed. Okay. All right, let's see here. Making the colors in the color box customizable. All you have to do is right-click on them. And when you right-click on them, you get the color palette. And then you can go advanced and you can make any color that you like. So just right-click in any of those boxes and you can change that color. More webinars. The question is there going to be more webinars? Yes, there will be more webinars coming. We're starting out with these advanced takeoff webinars, but I'm thinking we're probably going to be doing some other webinars. And certainly if you guys have suggestions, feel free to email those in or give them the tech line there, tech support line, and we'll start setting some more up in the future. So. Okay. All right. That'll wrap up our session for today. I appreciate you guys joining us here. And webinars available on the website was another question. And I'm going to try to record these guys and send them out there. Okay. All right, gang. We will talk to you later. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.